following the recent calls by the central bank governor Sanusi for the government to cut recurrent expenditure. Dr. Okoju breaks down the numbers in the 2013 budget and explains why it's difficult for the government to cut recurrent expenditure quicker than it has been doing over the last 2 years. Of course, CNBC Africa's Wole Famorera earlier today talked to Bright Okoju, of course, the DG of Nigeria's budget office. Take a look.
The budget, as you know, is with the National Assembly at this time. The way we've configured the 2013 budget, the personnel cost is about 35% of the total, the entire budget, about 35%. Now, recurrent expenditure is high, no question. But just cast your mind back to 2 years ago. It was about 74.7% of the total. And since then, we've been working very hard, very, very hard since that time to reduce the share of the budget that goes for recurrent.
All right, so you've brought it down to about 68 going into next year.
It's about 68.3, I would say.
Where have you been able to find the cost savings?
Cost savings have come from a variety of ways. Number one, the IPs, Integrated Personnel and Payroll Information System, is such that you're able to use it to document properly through biometric verification people who are actually working. You know, we can't run away from the fact that we have a bit of ghost worker incidents here and there. So we've done that to try and clean up the payroll. That's part of it. Second part is that MDAs, in terms of the overhead of MDAs, ministries, departments and agencies, we've done our level best to cut down on recurrent expenditure by reducing items that we consider to be maybe important but not critical. And also, at the same time, we've been increasing in absolute terms how much we are putting for capital. So when you put all together the mix, you get this gradual reduction in overall overhead and personnel, which is put together as recurrent spending. And that's how we've got to what we've gotten so far.
Okay, so a key element in today's summit is cost of governance. And clearly we're already speaking to some of these issues. Can you just help our viewers understand the challenge that the government faces when they said it's tough for them to bring down these costs much quicker than they are coming, especially with respect to recurrent expenditure?
Okay. Recurrent expenditure, people sometimes don't quite understand what is in there. Recurrent expenditure, as I've said, is mostly personnel costs.
So we're talking about how many people?
How many people in the service generally? You know, so if you're looking at that, should you decide, okay, it's very easy to say we want to reduce the recurrent spending. But if you say you want to reduce recurrent spending, you must also bear in mind, as a responsible government, that I have citizens who are working, and each and every one of those people is probably supporting 5 to 6 people, you know, husband, wife, relatives, etc.
And how many people are we talking about for the federal government?
I think in total, you're looking at about, for the service, I think it's just a little over 1 million, you know, persons.
So 1 million people's work at risk if we were to cut much more.
Well, you will not definitely cut all million. You'll be cutting a good proportion of that. And each of those people supporting, let's say, 5 people, 5 other, making 6 on average. You can imagine the extent of extra pain you will have in the system. So I think what the governors of central bank was saying is essentially that we need to reduce recurrent. I think the whole idea of sensationalizing that they should sack half of the something is not the point. The point really is that you need to reduce the extent of recurrent spending. And I think everybody agrees that that is a way. How you do it and do it with sensitivity is what is left, which all of us are working towards.
The final point, that said, yes, it will be a challenge to ask some people to leave their work. But some people suggest that we still have to go this route at some point. Looking at the way the government is run today, that it is not sustainable to have this many people in the civil service. How do you respond to that? And how is the government considering that rhetoric going forward?
Well, we won't call it rhetoric. What I would say is that the point people are making, they are basically showing the same concern that all of us have, that you need to have more money to run the capital investment in this country, because that's what we develop the nation. So nobody is, we are not really disagreeing with the objective. It's just that when you say you want to do it that way, you have to ask yourself, how do I do it in a most sensitive manner? One of the ways different countries have done it, and I really must be very clear on this. Many countries facing this kind of situation, sometimes they fire people, sometimes they cut salaries. Sometimes when people retire, they don't replace them. So you have a mixture. In our case, because we have high unemployment, the government has been very, very clever and and very sensitive by saying, no, let's not just fire people in that manner.